Most people think closing a credit card is a smart financial move. You're no longer using it, so why keep it sitting around? You've already paid off the balance, the interest rate was garbage anyway, and removing one less account from your life feels like simplification, like you're being responsible. But here's the thing that catches almost everyone off guard. Closing a credit card can actually tank your credit score, not damage it a little bit. Tank it, and by a meaningful amount. We're talking 50 to 100 points just gone, sometimes more, and for most people that swing is enough to knock them out of a favourable lending bracket entirely. It's counterintuitive. You're doing something that feels responsible, something that feels like you're getting your finances in order, and the credit system punishes you for it. So why does closing a card hurt your score so badly? What exactly is happening behind the scenes that makes a card going dormant suddenly become a liability? And then, crucially, are there situations where closing a card actually makes sense anyway, even knowing all of this damage it's about to do? The reason closing a credit card damages your score comes down to how credit scores are calculated. There's a formula weighted heavily toward two metrics. First is your payment history, which makes up about 35% of your score. If you're paying bills on time, your score goes up. If you're late, it tanks. But the second metric is where closing a card becomes painful. It's called your credit utilization ratio, and it accounts for about 30% of your score. Credit utilization is your total debt divided by your total available credit. So if you have 3 cards with a combined limit of $15,000 and you're carrying $3,000 in debt, your utilization is 20%. That's healthy. Most advisors say stay under 30%, and under 10% is ideal. The credit bureaus like seeing access to credit you're not actually using. It signals restraint and stability. But here's what happens when you close a card. Let's say your closed card had a $5,000 limit. You now have $10,000 in available credit instead of $15,000. If you're still carrying $3,000 in debt, your utilization jumps from 20% to 30%. You didn't spend extra, you didn't take on new debt, you simply made less credit available, and mathematically your ratio got worse. In the credit bureau's eyes, that looks like you're getting more desperate, more reliant on credit. So they lower your score. The scoring model doesn't reward this behavior, it punishes it. The credit bureaus assess risk. When they see available credit you're not using, they see financial stability and options. When they see maxed out credit, they see risk and desperation. The utilization ratio is essentially a proxy for financial desperation. Closing a card makes you look more desperate, even if that's not what's happening. There's a second reason closing a card hurts. Age of accounts, which makes up about 15% of your score. Older credit history is better. When you close a card, it stays on your report for 7 years, but it's listed as closed. Closed accounts are weighted less heavily than open ones. If you close an older account and keep newer ones, your average account age drops. Let's say you've had 3 cards for 5 years each. Close one and open a new card a year ago, and your average drops from 5 years to about 3. That's another hit to your score because the bureaus see a less seasoned credit profile. The third factor, and this is smaller but it matters, is called your credit mix. Credit mix accounts for about 10% of your score. It basically means having different types of credit is better than having just one type. If you've got credit cards, a car loan, a mortgage, maybe a student loan, that's a healthy mix. It shows you can handle different kinds of credit. When you close a card, you're reducing your credit diversity, especially if it was a card type you don't have duplicates of. Let's say you had one rewards card and one cashback card. You close the rewards card. Now you only have cashback. Your mix is slightly less diverse. It's not a huge hit, not compared to the utilization ratio, but it's another small push downward on your score. And these all add up. The effect isn't magical, it's mathematical. Closing a card triggers losses across multiple scoring categories. Utilization gets worse immediately. Age of accounts decreases over time, and credit mix gets less diverse. None of these things is catastrophic on its own, but together they're enough to swing a score by 50 to 100 points, which is material. For some people, that's the difference between getting approved for a mortgage at 6% and getting approved at 6%. 5%, that's tens of thousands of dollars over the life of a loan. For others, it's the difference between approval and denial. So that's the damage. But here's the thing that most financial advice leaves out. There are absolutely situations where closing a card makes sense anyway. Some people know all this damage is coming and they do it anyway. And they're making the right call. The first scenario, where closing a card is justified, is when you're paying an annual fee that you're never going to recoup. Some premium rewards cards charge $500, $400, sometimes even $1,000 a year just to keep the account open. If you're not using the card, if you're not churning through enough rewards to justify that fee, then you're just hemorrhaging money. In that case, closing the card and accepting the credit score hit might be the better financial move. Yes, your score drops 50 points, but you stop paying $400 a year forever. Over 5 years, that's $2,000. Over 10 years, that's $4,000. If you're not buying a house or applying for a loan in the next few years, that score recovery isn't worth the annual bleed. Sometimes the math just says close the card and move on. The second scenario is when you're carrying high balances and you need to optimize your debt payoff strategy. Here's a situation. You've got 3 credit cards and you're trying to pay them down aggressively. You've got a $5,000 card with an 18% interest rate, a $3,000 card with a 22% rate, and a $2,000 card with a 10% rate. You're focused on paying the highest interest rate card first. But let's say you also have some cash on hand, and you could either pay down one of these cards or put the money into an emergency fund. Most financial advisors would say, keep the emergency fund. Don't sacrifice short-term security for credit score points. That's the right call. But if you close one of the lower limit cards that you've already paid off and you're not using, you're freeing up psychological space and removing the temptation to accumulate more debt. For some people, that's worth the temporary score hit. The environment matters. The third scenario is when you're switching to a different card for better rewards or a better rate, and you want to consolidate your cards. Some people have 8, 9, 10 credit cards. It's excessive. You can't track them all. You're paying fees on some of them. The administrative burden alone is a pain. You close a few that don't make sense. Keep the best ones and accept the score hit. Yes, your score might drop 60, 70, 80 points, but you've simplified your financial life. You're not paying fees on cards you've forgotten about. You're not juggling 10 different due dates. That simplification has genuine value. And if you're not applying for credit in the next year or two, that score recovery is coming anyway. The fourth scenario is when you've got a card with predatory terms or a company you don't want to support. Maybe the card issuer has terrible customer service. Maybe they've been caught doing unethical things. Maybe the interest rate is unconscionable and you just don't want to be involved with them anymore. Some people will close the card on principle, knowing it costs them credit score points. That's a values decision, not a math decision, but it's still valid. The fifth scenario, and this is important, is when you're trying to address fraud or identity theft. If your card has been compromised and you close it, yes, your score takes a hit, but security comes first. Fraud and identity theft can cost you thousands and years of financial recovery. A temporary credit score drop is the price you pay to get that account out of circulation. Close the card. Deal with the score recovery later. Now, what most people don't realize is that you don't have to close a card to stop using it. You can just leave it open with a zero balance. The credit bureau still sees it as an open account. Your available credit stays in the calculation. Your utilization ratio stays favorable. Your age of accounts keeps counting. and you get all the benefits of having that card available without any of the damage. This is actually the smartest move for most people. Keep the card open, maybe charge something tiny to it every few months, and pay it off immediately just to keep it active. The issuer won't close it for inactivity if you're using it, even in small amounts. Your credit profile stays healthy, your score stays stable. Problem solved. But not everyone is comfortable with this. Some people have had bad experiences with credit cards. Some people know themselves and know they'll end up using the card again if it's just sitting there in their wallet. Some people just have a psychological need to close the account and move on. That's legitimate too. You have to know yourself. If you can't trust yourself to keep the card dormant, close it. The damage is real, but it's temporary. Your score will recover. It takes time, but it happens. A lot of people panic when their score drops 50, 60, 70 points. They think they've broken their credit permanently. They haven't. Your score recovers from the utilization hit relatively quickly, especially if you're paying bills on time and managing your accounts responsibly. Within a few months to a year, you'll usually see the score bounce back because utilization is just one factor. If you're still making on-time payments, you're keeping your other accounts healthy, and you're not taking on new high-interest debt, the score recovers. The age of accounts thing takes longer to recover from because, well, accounts literally get older over time. But even that rebounds eventually. Within a few years, your average account age gets back to normal, especially if you keep your remaining cards open. And the credit mix impact is usually minimal and recovers quickly too. So the message is this: closing a credit card is a real financial hit in the short term. It can cost you 50 to 100 points or more on your credit score. It impacts multiple factors in the calculation. And if you're planning to apply for a mortgage or a car loan in the next 6 months, closing a card right before that application is a bad idea. But if you have a good reason to close it, if you're not applying for credit soon, or if you've already decided that the psychological or financial benefit of closing the card outweighs the score impact, then go ahead and close it. Just know what you're giving up. Know that it's going to happen, and know that it's going to recover. The system isn't punishing you for being responsible. It's just measuring something you're not paying attention to. And once you understand what it's measuring, you can make better decisions about your own credit health. Thanks for watching, mate. Bye.